Urban Daily+Pet Flo Jiang Lin unexpectedly adopted an abandoned little white cat and has since owned a pet with a decorative panel. Enhance favorability, open the pet talent tree, enhance intelligence, and initiate pet transformation. Unconsciously, Jiang Lin felt that something was wrong with his pet. The clever little white cat transformed into a cat ear girl, dedicated to typing on the keyboard and writing books every day, aspiring to become a well-known writer. The dog with a high level of martial arts self-proclaimed himself as the mother version of Roaring Sky Dog, constantly clamoring to go outside to be chivalrous and righteous, meddling in his own affairs. The little white fox, who excels in both spiritual and martial arts, is addicted to dog blood love dramas and cannot extricate herself. She is determined to talk to Jiang Lin about a grand and passionate love story between humans and foxes. Keywords of the novel. My pet can add points without pop-ups. My pet can add points. Download the complete TXT collection, and my pet can add points to read the latest chapters. Chapter 1. Pet Panel. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 1. Pet Panel. In March, Linjiang City is sunny at noon. In a slightly cramped rental room, Jiang Lin was standing at the entrance, looking at the shoe box lying on the ground outside and scratching his head in some distress. There is a layer of red blanket inside the shoe box, on which is a kitten covered in snow white. Meow. The kitten lifted its small head and let out a light cry, meow. Meow. Obviously, this is a newly abandoned kitten. Jiang Lin looked up at the vicinity of the community and couldn't see anyone else. He took a nap and woke up to be attracted by the meowing of cats outside. He went out to take a look, but he didn't know how long the cat had been abandoned here. He hesitated a bit. Just leave it like this, or Jiang Lin squatted down and observed carefully. The size of the kitten is about 20.30 centimeters, and it is estimated to be around 3 months old at most. Its snow-white fur is not a bit mottled, making it very attractive. Its small emerald-like eyes also timidly stared at the unfamiliar human in front of it, curled up in the corner of the shoe box. Amidst the cries, there was a strong sense of unease and fear. Meow, Jiang Lin's dim sum is soft. Even such a small kitten wouldn't be able to forage on its own. If it were left outside like this, it would probably starve to death. Jiang Lin made up his mind that no matter what, he should take the kitten home first. He carefully picked up the shoe box and carried it home. As he closed the door, there was a sudden ding sound in his mind. Pet panel is loading completed. Variety. Mixed blood, gender. Mother, age. 0.3 years old, life expectancy. 10 years, favorite impression. 0, constitution. 2, spiritual intelligence. 3. Talent tree requires a liking rating of 10 to activate. Transforming requires the activation of spiritual intelligence 100. Jiang Lin was slightly taken aback. Is this the legendary golden finger? Although the system's mention of shape-shifting made him somewhat imaginative, the top priority is to first think carefully about how to take care of this kitten. The newly arrived kitten appeared very scared of this narrow rental house, completely huddled up and buried its little head in the corner blanket. It's like saying, as long as I can't see you, you can't see me. Jiang Lin felt a bit amused and reached out to pick up the kitten from the shoe box, but as soon as he touched it, the kitten's body trembled slightly. Animals often instinctively fear when they first arrive in unfamiliar environments. Although Jiang Lin has never kept a pet, this truth is still clear. He gave up the idea of moving a spot for the kitten and found that it was a bit dirty, so he took out 2 more sheets of paper without getting wet. Jiang Lin estimated that the cat's courage was relatively small, afraid of stimulating it. Its movements were very gentle, carefully helping the kitten clean up some fallen leaves and dust on its body, and gradually smoothing out its slightly longer white hair. At first, the kitten still seemed very scared, but gradually, every time the palm touched, the kitten's body no longer trembled. When Jiang Lin finally stood up again, he was surprised to find that the pet panel had slightly changed. Favorite impression. 3. The favorability has increased by 3 points. The kitten is no longer always like an ostrich, but occasionally lifts its head, alert and curious. It seems that this little guy finally understands that he has no ill intentions towards it. Jiang Lin played around the shoe box for a moment again, stroking the cat's fur and gently stroking it, without much movement, trying to soothe the little one's tense and uneasy emotions. The little kitten is finally not as scared as it was at the beginning. Curiosity has gradually become more vigilant, and it has dared to straighten up its still thin body, poke out its small head, look around, and see this new environment. It also understands that there is no danger here. The favorability quickly increased by 2 points and reached 5 points. Jiang Lin was a bit happy, and the increase in favorability seemed to be easier than he thought. However, after that, the favorability level came to a slight halt, and no matter how much Jiang Lin continued to tease, the favorability level ultimately only stopped at 5 points. This simple touch and teasing seems to increase the upper limit of favorability. Meow. Meow. The kitten suddenly began to meow again, but compared to when it first entered the room, the loud and clear meowing was less frightening and more urgent. Jiang Lin scratched his head, feeling a bit confused. The kitten tilted its head back and continued to meow, its tail constantly swaying from side to side. Jiang Lin pondered and muttered to himself, "Are you hungry?" The person who abandoned the cat did not put any cat food in the shoe box, so he must be hungry. Jiang Lin took out his phone, opened the food delivery app, and tried to search. Sure enough, there was cat food delivery. After comparing it repeatedly for a while, he found a suitable cat food and a cat food basin for young cats to eat. Place an order and make payment. 10 minutes later, a beautifully packaged bag of cat food arrived in hand. From the system panel, Jiang Lin knew that this little guy was only 3 months old and was worried that he wouldn't be able to eat anything too hard. He first soaked the cat food in warm water and then poured it into the cat food bowl. Although the little one had a slight liking for Jiang Lin, his basic vigilance was not completely dispelled. At most, he just wandered back and forth in the shoe box, afraid to leave the range of the shoe box. Jiang Lin just put the small cat food bowl into the box, and the kitten immediately leaned in, sniffed its nose first, and then buried its head and focused on eating. "I am indeed hungry." Jiang Lin sat on the nearby chair without disturbing it, just quietly watching the little one eat, watching it eat fragrant, and inexplicably feeling happy. When the cat food was almost eaten, Jiang Lin took out the food bowl, changed it to a clean small bowl, filled it with some warm water, and put it into the box. The kitten extended its tongue and licked the water in the bowl with a sound. Meow. Meow. After eating and drinking enough, she lifted her small head and let out a few satisfied cries, appearing a bit unsatisfied. Favorite +5. Soon, Jiang Lin received a prompt from the system to increase his favorability, and this time he directly increased it by 5 points. It seems that the little one should have had a very happy meal. In this way, the overall favorability has finally increased to 10 points, meeting the conditions for opening the talent tree. Favorite opinion 10, talent tree has been opened, currently available talent points. 1. Tip. Pets can acquire new talent points as they age and continue to learn and grow. Jiang Lin quickly opened the talent tree. The entire talent map extends from top to bottom like a tree, with very few talents at the top. The lower down, the more talents there are to choose from. However, most of the talents in the middle and lower levels are in a blurry and invisible state. It is necessary to light up the corresponding prerequisite talents before unlocking and viewing them. The first level of talent actually only has 2 options, which are Junior Spirituality and Junior Constitution. Primary Spirituality. It can slightly improve the intelligence of pets. After learning this talent, the pet's intelligence +5 primary physical fitness. It can slightly improve the overall physical fitness and exercise ability of pets. After learning this talent, the pet's physical fitness +5 end of this chapter. Chapter 2. Primary Spirituality. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 2 Primary Spirituality. Which one should I order first? Jiang Lin hesitated for a moment. According to the system's prompts, obtaining talent points may not be easy. After thinking for a moment, he decided not to rush to make a decision. There are other things that need to be done first. Since he has made up his mind to adopt this kitten, well, he inevitably worries about its health. After all, some people will throw away sick cats directly, and if there is feline plague, it can be very troublesome. Although the little guy looks pretty good, without a detailed inspection, it's inevitable to make people feel uneasy. After taking out his phone and searching on Baidu Maps for a moment, Jiang Lin didn't delay his time. He carefully picked up his shoe box, took a taxi outside, and headed straight to the nearest pet hospital. Jiang Lin has little experience in keeping pets, so he directly followed the doctor's advice and underwent a full set of physical examinations. The fee is over 400 yuan, and there are many examination items, such as parasite examination, skin examination, infectious disease screening, and so on. But when it was time to check, the problem came again. The kitten had just adapted to the unfamiliar environment at home when suddenly it was taken to a brand new and unfamiliar place. Jiang Lin estimates that the little guy is naturally very timid. When it first arrived at the hospital, it curled up completely in the corner of the box again, trembling and trembling. However, Jiang Lin now has a 10-point liking, and the little one no longer has the initial strong reaction to his contact. Jiang Lin took the kitten out of the box and placed it on the examination table, instructing, "Doctor, my cat is a bit timid. Please try to move as gently as possible later." "Thank you." The doctor who came for the examination was a woman, wearing a mask and unable to tell her age. Upon hearing this, she nodded. The woman's movements were indeed agile and as gentle as possible, but there was inevitably a lot of fuss during the examination process. Meow. Meow. The kitten's cry began to become mournful. It tried to wave its tender little paws to resist, but unfortunately, at 3 months old, it didn't have enough strength and was easily held down by its body. This also exacerbates the fear of the kitten. The female doctor also tried to appease her with words, but obviously it was of no use. She stopped her movements for a moment and looked at Jiang Lin with a hint of helplessness. "Do you have any snacks like cat strips with you? Can you feed it some?" Jiang Lin shook his head and said, "I just picked it up today and haven't had a chance to buy it yet." "Then you can touch it more and make it stop moving. I'll have to draw some blood later, and it'll be over soon." "Understood, then let me talk to it." "It's also possible." The little one's cry made Jiang Lin feel sorry to hear it, but there was no way. For the future health of the kitten, these are necessary examinations that must be done. The blood draw may hurt a bit, but it will heal soon. Be good, don't move around and cooperate with the doctor. These checks are all for your own good, so be a little patient. After completing the examination, I will buy you a big meal to eat when you go home. Jiang Lin had no experience keeping pets before, and he didn't know what to say. He could only try to slow down and be gentle in his tone. The female doctor took some time to glance at him and felt that this cute and new fecal digger not only looked a bit handsome, but also quite gentle. Unfortunately, it was completely useless, and the kitten's cry remained as mournful as ever. The female doctor looked at Jiang Lin, who was somewhat depressed, and kindly reminded him, "It's okay, he can't understand what you're saying. It's normal for him to say more to distract his attention. Can't understand human language." Jiang Lin's eyes lit up and he immediately opened the pet talent panel. Previously, he was hesitant about where to add this talent point, but now he has made a decision. Primary spirituality, confirmed selection, spiritual intelligence +5, after adding 5 points of intelligence, the total intelligence reached 8 points. In fact, Jiang Lin didn't know if this beginner spiritual talent would really be effective. He bent slightly at the examination table and continued to try talking to the kitten. By the way, I haven't even introduced myself to you yet. My name is Jiang Lin. I don't know if your former owner has given you a name, but what about him? I'll give you a new name today. Well, you look so white, let's call you Xiaobai. The female doctor pursed her lips and smiled lightly, thinking that this handsome boy was quite cute. This naming method is really simple and rough, it's just tacky. Jiang Lin chattered on and on again, but did not notice that a lively light flashed through Little Bai's emerald-like small eyes. Meow, Omega, Jiang Lin was momentarily taken aback, feeling that the meowing this time was different from what he had heard before. Is it because of the addition of facial expressions? After learning the talent of beginner spirituality, Xiao Bai's expression is no longer like that of an ordinary cat. He will always have a paralyzed face and begins to subconsciously change with his expression. It's like the little one really understood Jiang Lin's words and was really responding to him. Jiang Lin was both surprised and delighted, this little guy seems to really understand what I'm saying. Ah! The doctor was stunned for a moment, feeling a bit bewildered, thinking to himself, how could this be possible? She only thought that Jiang Lin was passionate about cats and had an illusion, but it didn't matter. She could also understand the feeling of caring for cats. Subsequently, Xiao Bai's cry gradually became less mournful and softened a lot, as if he could understand that the current situation was not dangerous for him. The inspection has finally been completed. Jiang Lin took Xiao Bai back to his shoe box and encouraged him, you did a good job just now. We can go home later. Meow meow, the inexplicable and dynamic light in Little White's eyes still lingers. Jiang Lin pondered, is this the effect brought by the 5 points of spiritual intelligence? He began to look forward to his future talents even more. The examination results came out quickly, except for a slight weakness, everything else was normal. Jiang Lin finally felt completely at ease. After learning that Jiang Lin was a novice cat owner, the female doctor asked him to deworm his kitten and reminded him to come over and get vaccinated a week later. There is a specialized pet equipment store in the pet hospital, and although it is known that it may sell more expensive here, Jiang Lin is indeed in a hurry to use it now. I wandered around inside and soon Jiang Lin's shopping cart was filled with cat litter, litter box, cat scratch board, cleaning tools, and more. Finally, after settling the bill, a few hundred yuan went out. Carrying a bunch of things back home, Jiang Lin sat down to rest for a moment, then tried to lift Xiao Bai from his shoe box to his lap and gently brushed the cat's fur. Xiao Bai's hair is slightly longer and feels softer to the touch. No wonder so many people like to masturbate cats, the feel is really good. Moreover, Jiang Lin estimates that when Xiao Bai grows up with more dense hair, the texture will be better, which is really exciting. What delighted Jiang Lin the most was that Xiao Bai obediently lay on his legs, completely devoid of any resistance, quietly enjoying his caresses, occasionally lifting his head slightly and shouting twice. Meow, Omega, sure enough, this is the effect of a liking rating of 10. End of this chapter. Chapter 3. Freelancers. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 3. Freelancers. Jiang Lin became a defecating official for the first time, and many pet tools were his first contact and heard of. Fortunately, there are a lot of beginner teaching videos available online. He is basically learning and using it on the spot. Before going to the hospital, I ate a lot of cat food for Xiao Bai. At this moment, I estimated that he also had a sense of feces. Jiang Lin packed the litter box as soon as he returned home, and then took Xiao Bai in advance to familiarize him with the environment. Xiao Bai seemed to know what to do. He walked back and forth in the litter box twice, selected the appropriate position, stood up, and brooded for a moment before finally releasing it. He didn't need Jiang Lin to teach him anymore, so he turned around and used his paws to scrape the litter, burying the excrement. Then Xiao Bai leaped out and ran back to Jiang Lin's side, shouting a few times, as if asking for credit. Meow meow, smiley face, omega smiley face. The whole process went exceptionally smoothly. Originally, Jiang Lin was still struggling with how to quickly teach Xiaobai how to use cat litter. This is probably also due to the increase of 5 points in spiritual intelligence. Jiang Lin opened the talent tree again, and after learning beginner spirituality, the following talents of this talent line are no longer in a blurry state, and can be directly checked in advance. Going further down from basic spiritual talents, there are 3 talent options: basic thoughts, basic emotions, and basic cognition. According to the talent introduction, these options can provide pets with more self-thinking and logical abilities, richer emotional systems, and stronger cognitive abilities towards external information. It seems that the talents in this series are a comprehensive way to enhance the spiritual abilities of pets, and many talents have additional spiritual bonuses. The requirement for achieving transformation is 100 points of intelligence. If you want to meet this condition as soon as possible, you must continue to specialize in this line and related talents in the future. Moreover, Xiaobai is still a female cat, which makes Jiang Lin unable to help but have some room for imagination about her transformation, such as the cute cat ear mother. Of course, Jiang Lin felt that he was an upright person, so he just casually fantasized about it. The initial talent point is considered an additional bonus in the system, and how to obtain more talent points in the future is the most crucial issue. The system's prompt is to acquire talent points as one ages and continuously learns and grows. According to Jiang Lin's understanding, even if he doesn't do anything, he should be able to automatically acquire some talent points by waiting for the novice to grow up step by step. Jiang Lin vaguely felt that these naturally acquired talents were definitely very few, and the lifespan of an ordinary cat was only about 10 years, probably not many talents could be obtained until old age. There should be a faster way to obtain additional talent points. However, there is currently no clue about this issue, so we can only explore it slowly in the future. After tossing and turning all day today, both Jiang Lin and Xiaobai were a bit tired. Before buying a new cat house, Xiaobai still needs to continue sleeping in the shoe box, and the blanket inside is quite clean. It's spring now, so there's no need to worry about the cold at night. The shoe box is right next to the bed, and Jiang Lin's rental room was not very big originally. There was 1 bedroom, 1 bathroom, and 1 kitchen. There was not much space left in the bedroom with a single bed and a desk. During this sleep, each person and cat slept soundly. In the morning, when Jiang Lin opened his eyes, Xiaobai was already running back and forth in the room. When Jiang Lin woke up, Xiaobai immediately ran over and rubbed against his ankle. Jiang Lin couldn't help but hold Xiaobai onto his leg and gently stroke him along the soft white hair for a long time. Let's talk about masturbating cats. It's really addictive. Until he realized that he hadn't eaten yet, he reluctantly let Xiaobai slip away from his hand. Prepare cat food for Xiaobai first, and as for Jiang Lin himself, he just ate 2 biscuits casually to cope with it. Although Jiang Lin really wants to continue masturbating the cat for a while, he must continue working today, especially since he wasted almost half of his time yesterday. As a proud freelancer, with a computer and internet, his work can be completed anywhere and at any time, which is quite convenient. Okay, Jiang Lin admits that he is actually a tough online writer, and just a few months into the industry, he should be considered a dead end. There's no way, since graduating from university, Jiang Lin has changed jobs 3 times in just over 3 years. In the past 2 years, the economy has been in a slump. The first 2 companies where Jiang Lin works said they want to reduce costs and increase efficiency, and they want to spend the cold winter together, which translates to major layoffs. Jiang Lin, who graduated from a prestigious university without any background, naturally caught up with it. When it came to the 3rd company, it was even more unlucky. Jiang Lin had just worked for more than half a year when the boss directly announced that the company had gone bankrupt due to poor management. Afterwards, Jiang Lin continued to submit countless resumes, but they all sank into the sea without any news. Every day when he opens the internet, he can always see news about how many people have been laid off by this big company or that company. He also knows that it is really difficult to find a suitable job now, and if he has a bit of an urgent illness and seeks medical treatment randomly, he decided to dive into the online literary circle and give it a try. At least from his student days until now, he is also considered a reader with rich reading experience, and with a bit of writing ability. He was successfully signed by the website after publishing books on the Endpoint novel website not long ago. This made Jiang Lin at that time have an inflated illusion, feeling that he was about to become a god with a book, sell it through all channels, and then marry Bai Fumei, thus reaching the pinnacle of his life. Unfortunately, the reality of online articles is even more cruel and realistic than he imagined. Signing a contract was just the first threshold for online writing, and after that, his performance in novels did not meet expectations. He spends almost half of his time desperately coding and updating every day, with monthly full attendance and subsistence allowances, as well as a meager subscription fee of only 1,000 yuan, barely enough to pay rent and food. However, Jiang Lin is not a person who spends a lot of money. In the past few years, he has also been frugal in his work and life. In addition, the previous companies are also quite legitimate, so he has given N+1 layoff compensation that should be given. Jiang Lin still saved some money as a result, and he was already an orphan. He was raised by his grandfather since childhood. After his grandfather passed away in college, other relatives, and he had even less contact. He is now eating alone, the whole family is not hungry, and his life is not too difficult for the time being. Now with Xiao Bai, spending on cat litter, cat food, going to the hospital, and so on will definitely increase significantly. Jiang Lin sighed lightly, feeling that he needed to work harder in the future. Thinking of this, he glanced at the lively little white who had finished eating cat food. As if sensing his gaze, Xiao Bai stopped and called out to him clearly in response. Meow 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 v equals caret omega caret smiley face v. The more you look at it, the cuter it becomes. Jiang Lin was a bit adorable, and as he swept away his previous slump, he suddenly became full of vitality. Only when there is pressure can there be motivation. In order to buy better cat food for Xiao Bai, start working. The day's work began with a crackling sound of keyboard tapping. End of this chapter. Chapter 4. The Spiritual Growth of Nature. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 4. The Spiritual Growth of Nature. Jiang Lin is still very focused on coding work, following the ideas in his mind and writing a chapter in one breath. Open the author backend of the Endpoint novel website, and then upload the completed chapter to complete it. However, for Jiang Lin, today's task is just the beginning. In order to earn more royalties, updating one chapter a day is far from enough. If the grades are not good, then we can only rely on quantity to make up. He took a sip of water and stretched lazily. Just as he was about to continue his struggle, he suddenly felt a bit strange. The room seemed a bit too quiet. Where was the meowing just now? A little white who has eaten and slept well is full of vitality. Jiang Lin quickly turned his head and found that the little guy was right next to him. Since just now, there has been no sound, and he almost didn't notice. Jiang Lin couldn't help but laugh and cry, "Why did you run here?" Beside the desk was his suitcase, and Xiao Bai probably couldn't jump directly to the height of the desk. He jumped onto the suitcase at some point, then sat upright with his front legs and crouched with his back legs in a dog-like posture, almost motionless. His small eyes kept staring at the computer screen. Jiang Lin was somewhat moved and said, "Xiao Bai, are you trying to be with me because it's too hard for me to earn money by coding here alone?" What a thoughtful little kitten. It is truly a pet with 8 points of intelligence, and it is truly becoming more and more human. Xiao Bai finally shifted his gaze slightly and glanced at his owner with a strange expression. Meow. 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 Omega, Seems like I guessed wrong. I saw the little kitten exert a slight force on its hind legs, jump lightly, use the suitcase as a springboard, and finally jump onto Jiang Lin's desk for the first time. Xiao Bai leaned his head together and got close to the computer screen. The cat's eyes are very sensitive to light, and the little one has to squint their eyes almost in a slit to minimize the screen brightness in their field of view, so that they can see more clearly. Jiang Lin's expression of emotion slightly faded, and he shook his head with a smirk. Okay, it's him who is being too passionate. Xiao Bai is just interested in computers. It's normal to be curious when encountering completely unfamiliar and novel things. However, this little thing blocked the keyboard and screen, making it difficult for Jiang Lin to continue typing. After waiting for a moment, there was no sign of Xiao Bai leaving. Let's go somewhere else to play, okay? Jiang Lin reached out and took Xiao Bai away. Meow meow meow. Little Bai reluctantly called out a few times, and as soon as he was carried to the ground, he immediately turned around and jumped back onto the suitcase, then used the pedal to return to his desk. After being speechless for a while, Jiang Lin finally compromised and said, "Okay, you can read if you want, but you need to change your position, otherwise it will block my typing." He picked up the little white again, but did not place it on the floor, but on his own legs. Xiao Bai immediately understood his meaning, squatting with his hind legs against Jiang Lin's abdomen and his front feet lying on the table, while supporting his young body. This way, he could expose his small head and press it against Jiang Lin's chest, facing the computer. Jiang Lin shook his head secretly, and when he got tired, he probably walked away. He was too lazy to bother the novice anymore and refocused his attention on his novel. The crackling typing sound rang out again, and Xiao Bai was obedient, as if he had only maintained this posture and stopped shouting until Jiang Lin was busy. Jiang Lin slightly adjusted his sitting posture, folding his legs together to make Xiao Bai more comfortable. This strange coding writing state was also his first time, and he always felt very strange. Half an hour later. Xiao Bai still didn't leave, and Jiang Lin casually lowered his head to glance. He was somewhat surprised to find that Xiao Bai's eyes were slowly moving back and forth. Its focus of attention should be the words constantly typed by Jiang Lin in the document. What it is interested in is not the computer itself, but actually text. You probably already recognize characters, right? Jiang Lin was skeptical and decided to conduct an experiment. He opened a new document, typed a few commonly used words, and then brought the screen closer. Xiao Bai, do you know each other? Xiao Bai looked at the document and then turned his head to look at Jiang Lin. Meow. Add winky face. It seems that Xiao Bai is a bit confused, completely unaware of the meaning of the text itself. Jiang Lin let out a breath, indeed thinking too much of himself. Is that right? If the kitten that has just been adopted for 2 days can read and write, wouldn't it become a demon immediately? Even with the addition of 5 points of primary spirituality, the effect cannot be as good as this. Jiang Lin, who casually opened the pet panel, suddenly froze in his eyes. Nickname. Xiao Bai, age. 0.3 years old, life expectancy. 10 years, favorite impression. 11 Constitution. 2 Wisdom. 8.1 Spiritual intelligence has actually become 8.1. Jiang Lin remembers very clearly that when he woke up in the morning, he specifically checked the panel properties. At that time, he wanted to see if his favorability had increased. As he expected, his favorability will gradually improve with the increase of time spent together. But apart from that, other attributes, especially spirituality, remain unchanged. Only half a day has passed, and the spiritual intelligence has increased by 0.1. Jiang Lin touched Xiao Bai's head, then glanced at the document he had just typed, and suddenly a bold guess emerged in his heart. Perhaps, in its subconscious, there is a natural interest in human writing. Xiao Bai is indeed illiterate, but at some point in his heart, he has developed a desire to learn writing. As for this desire to learn, perhaps it is the influence brought by the innate talent of beginner spirituality. The talent not only adds 5 points of intelligence, but also gives the novice a little more instinct for thinking and learning. This speculation excited Jiang Lin. Perhaps it is the true function of talent that guides pets to further grow, and the process of growth can also gain more talent points. After a moment of contemplation, Jiang Lin took the initiative to place Xiao Bai on the desk and moved his keyboard slightly to the right, freeing up more space for him. Then he continued typing on the keyboard, but slightly enlarged the text on the document. 1 hour later, upon checking the panel, the intelligence level remained at 8.1 until noon. When Jiang Lin was about to prepare for lunch, he uploaded the chapters he had written in the morning and stood up to rest. When he picked up the little white and checked again, he found that his intelligence had finally risen to 8.2. Jiang Lin gently furrowed his brows while masturbating the cat in his arms. Although spirituality has finally grown again, its speed has noticeably slowed down. The first increase of 0.1 only took half an hour, and the second increase of 0.1 took a few hours. Going forward, it may become even more difficult. Have a simple lunch and continue in the afternoon. But after an entire afternoon, there was no change in the mind. Later on, the little white who had been squatting on the desk almost all day finally couldn't bear it, meowing and barking as if exhausted. End of this chapter. Chapter 5. Learning to Recognize Characters. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 5. Learning to Recognize Characters. After 2 days of this experiment, Xiao Bai's intelligence remained at 8.2. Jiang Lin is not discouraged either. Originally, these 2 days were just the beginning of trying. It seems that this kind of pure bystander may have reached its limit by only making the novice think a little at the beginning and improving their intelligence by 0.2. If you want to continue improving, perhaps you should let Xiao Bai start learning writing from the basics. There is a hint of early education, and regardless of whether it is feasible or not, Jiang Lin decided to give it a try. Although inexperienced, Jiang Lin knew he couldn't go to those early education classes for Xiao Bai. Otherwise, taking the cat to class would make him feel like a lunatic and be kicked out of the house. He could only explore on his own. He first searched online for a while and found that there were a variety of early childhood education courses for young children. Although they could not be fully applied to cats, some of them were still worth learning from. Jiang Lin went to the west of Beijing again and bought a set of early education cards online for only a few tens of yuan, which was very cheap. After receiving the package the next day, Jiang Lin opened it and couldn't wait to bring Xiao Bai over and start trying. Each early education card is painted with various animals, common items, and so on, with Chinese attached next to it. Jiang Lin bought a simplified version without English. Jiang Lin rummaged through the cards and decided to start from the simplest. He pulled out a white cat card and shook it at Xiao Bai, saying, "This is a cat." He bit the word cat very hard, and then pointed to Xiao Bai. Xiao Bai was mistaken and thought he wanted to play with it. He pounced on it and tried to touch the early education card. Jiang Lin suddenly lifted the card to a height that the little one couldn't reach, and then shook his head. Xiao Bai said he didn't understand. Meow, meow, meow. Omega. Jiang Lin repeated the previous action. This time when he pronounced, he not only emphasized the sound, but also repeatedly pointed to the text on the card. Xiao Bai was confused, leaned his head together, and stared at the character, cat, for a moment, but it seemed that he still didn't understand. Jiang Lin continued to repeat his actions, and this time he took out his phone, turned on the mirror function, and placed it in front of Xiao Bai. "This is a cat," he said as he pointed to the little cutie in the mirror. Xiao Bai squatted on the bed, tilted his head, his emerald-like eyes blinking incessantly. He looked at the cards, the mirror, and then looked up at Jiang Lin. Xiao Bai seemed to be trying to digest and understand what Jiang Lin was trying to convey, but for a while, his mind still couldn't turn around. Jiang Lin is also very patient. After all, teaching cats to read sounds like nonsense. Mastering the talent of elementary spirituality, a little white with 8 points of intelligence is definitely smarter than any other cat of the same age, and much smarter. From the expressions it responds to Jiang Lin every time, Jiang Lin can also tell. Jiang Lin is just not sure to what extent this intelligence can reach and whether it can reach the level of literacy. Starting is the hardest part. Just a cat card has been tossed and turned for over 2 hours, during which Jiang Lin constantly tried various methods such as video, voice, handwritten text, and so on. Jiang Lin slowly pronounced his words time and time again. In order to avoid confusion between cat and other words by Xiaobai, Jiang Lin decided not to say anything else and repeated the same word. I don't know how many times it has been repeated, thousands of times, or tens of thousands of times. When the time came to about 3 hours, Jiang Lin said the word cat again, and Xiaobai's movements finally changed. The little one slowly extended his paw and paused in mid-air for a moment, seeming a bit hesitant, puzzled, and uncertain. Jiang Lin remained silent, holding up his early education card and looking at it nervously and eagerly. As if a hint of encouragement had been detected in his eyes, Xiaobai hesitated for a moment before suddenly retracting his small paws in mid-air, flipping over and pointing towards his head. Oh yeah! At this moment, Jiang Lin couldn't hide his excitement and jumped up with excitement, waving the card in his hand vigorously. Xiaobai was startled and thought he had done something wrong. He took 2 steps back and called out nervously. Jiang Lin quickly took a deep breath, suppressed his excitement, tore open the snack cat strips that had just arrived yesterday and handed them over as a reward, also to let the novice know that it had done the right thing just now. Meow meow omega, Xiaobai had no resistance to the scent of cat strips and immediately leaned in, enjoying Jiang Lin's caress on his head while munching on his snacks. After finishing the entire cat stick, the contented little wight stretched out his tongue and licked the hair around his mouth with satisfaction. Jiang Lin decided to strike while the iron was hot. He put away the early education card with pictures of cats, took out a piece of white paper, wrote a big cat character on it, and placed it in front of Xiaobai again. Xiaobai didn't hesitate for too long this time, and with the encouragement of the snacks just now, it quickly extended its meaty paws and pointed in its own direction. Great! Jiang Lin took out new white paper again, and this time the worker wrote 4 characters. Cat, dog, bird, and person, and then placed them in front of Xiaobai. Xiaobai decisively extended his paw and pointed at himself, but found that Jiang Lin's arm holding the paper was still not down, as if saying that the game was not over yet. After hesitating for a moment, Xiaobai moved his paw away and approached the paper, reading every word before finally reaching out and pointing to the character, cat. Jiang Lin shuffled the order of a few words and added a few new words. This time, the little wight reacted quickly. After only a few seconds, he quickly found the character, cat, and pointed it at himself. Surprisingly smooth, but the experiment continued. Jiang Lin needs to determine whether Xiaobai truly understands the meaning represented by the word cat, or whether it is just a conditional reflex formed after a lot of high-intensity training. He deliberately didn't put the word cat in several word groups. After pointing his paw at him, Xiaobai looked around the paper for a while, but didn't find the desired text. He just meowed directly, but no longer extended his paw. Continuing to increase the difficulty, Jiang Lin decided to put away the paper mixed with cat characters, and then took out a few early education cards from the previous ones and spread them out on the bed one by one, placing them on both sides. Xiaobai remained the same as before, first finding the word cat on the paper, and then pointing to himself, but after pointing, he did not receive the same encouraging touch from Jiang Lin as last time. It paused for a moment, then suddenly realized. It ran to the other side, slowly walking past each card, observing as it walked, and finally stood on the card with a cat painted on it, looking up and shouting. Meow meow, omega. The meowing was filled with pride, as if showing off to Jiang Lin. Look, is your little cutie smart? End of this chapter. Chapter 6. Achievements, Literacy and Dictation. You are listening at Novel Full. Audio. Chapter 6 Achievements, Literacy and Dictation. Jiang Lin exhaled slightly and smiled happily. It seems that Xiaobai is truly able to understand the meaning represented by the word cat, and it is definitely not a result of training conditioned reflexes. While contemplating, a long-lost system prompt suddenly came to mind. Your pet novice has achieved the feat of recognizing words and phrases. This is a small step at the beginning of learning, but it is a big step towards improving Xiaobai's intelligence. Obtain spare talent. Point 1. Jiang Lin quickly opened the pet panel, and his intelligence had increased to 8.3, but the improvement was still limited. After all, literacy was just beginning, and he only recognized one word. But as a result, they obtained a complete talent point, and the efforts and attempts in these days have not been in vain. This is simply an unexpected surprise. As the system prompts, pets can gain additional talent points for their learning and growth. This talent point will definitely continue to strengthen the subsequent talents of the junior spirituality and continue to improve spiritual intelligence. There are 3 subsequent talents, namely, beginner thoughts, beginner emotions, and beginner cognition, and all 3 talents must be selected sooner or later. However, the order still needs to be considered. Jiang Lin carefully considered for a long time and ultimately decided to focus his talent on beginner thinking. Beginner's thoughts. It can significantly improve pets' self-thinking and logical abilities, and after learning this talent, their intelligence will increase by 6. The plan to continue literacy for Xiaobai will definitely not stop, and the improved thinking and logical abilities of the beginner's mind should be able to make Xiaobai's literacy faster. Choose your talents and click Finish. Xiaobai seemed to feel something and suddenly stopped to close his eyes. In a short blink of an eye, he opened his eyes again and started bouncing around again. At first glance, it seems no different from before selecting a talent. But in the little one's eyes, they became even brighter and clearer than before, shining with a more obvious and agile luster. The literacy plan naturally became the main task that Jiang Lin had to do for a long time after. On the weekend, Jiang Lin took Xiaobai to the pet hospital to get vaccinated. Xiaobai's intelligence had reached 14.3, which was much higher than that of ordinary cats and dogs. The female doctor in charge of the injection was the one who came in last time. When she saw Jiang Lin carrying a shoebox, she took the initiative to say hello and said, "See you again. Are you here today to get vaccinated?" "That's right, doctor. You remember me. Your cat is both beautiful and cute, I have a slight impression." The female doctor chuckled lightly and said that she didn't wear a mask this time. In fact, the reason why she remembered Jiang Lin was not because of Xiaobai, but mainly because this handsome, cute, and gentle new fecal remover left a deep impression on her. "Thank you." Jiang Lin felt happy in his heart. Praising his cat's beauty was more enjoyable than directly praising his handsome appearance. As he spoke, he took Xiaobai out of his shoe box and gently placed him on the inspection table. Although Xiaobai was still instinctively afraid of strangers, he remained very quiet this time. The female doctor was preparing the vaccine next to her and looked up in surprise, saying, "Huh. This little guy seems to have had a lot more courage. Last time I came, I remember he shouted so loudly. Yes, my little white is very sensible. It's really cute, but you really call it Xiaobai. This name actually sounds quite nice. It's actually a very individualistic and popular name." Preparing the needle, the female doctor was about to come over and put a headscarf on Xiaobai. Xiaobai immediately shrank his head towards Jiang Lin's embrace, instinctively avoiding the hand that the female doctor had reached out to him. "Meow, the little white had a look of not letting me down." The female doctor felt a bit dazed for a moment and quickly exclaimed, "Your cat has such a rich expression, it feels like a person, it's amazing. It's the first time I've seen such a cat. This time it's true, it's not just because of Jiang Lin's handsome demeanor that I said a compliment." Jiang Lin gave a dry laugh without much explanation, then turned the topic aside and tentatively asked, can we not wear this headband? He could see clearly that Xiaobai really didn't like to put this thing around his neck. Last time I came to the hospital for a blood test, I actually brought it with me. Xiaobai did not show such obvious likes and dislikes. It seems that since tapping into the beginner thinking talent, Xiaobai has indeed begun to think more about the people or things around him, and the distinction between likes and dislikes has naturally become clearer. The female doctor hesitated for a moment. This type of headband is called an Elizabeth ring and is worn on the neck of pets. It is usually worn during injections and blood collection to prevent cats from biting the operator or licking the wound. Jiang Lin knows the function of a headband, but he is more aware that with Xiaobai's current level of intelligence, it is absolutely impossible for an injection to harm anyone. I promise, I will take good care of him. Well, that's okay, then I won't wear it. The female doctor put away her headband and smiled, it's okay. Actually, when you come across some well-behaved and quiet cats, you may not always wear them. Jiang Lin squatted down and leaned against the inspection table, holding on to Xiaobai's two fleshy little paws with both hands. He gently pinched them, trying to pass on the warmth and strength of his palms. The injection was quickly over, and except for the little one who couldn't help but moan in pain when the needle was inserted, the entire process was very quiet, as if fully understanding that this injection behavior accompanied by brief pain was for their own health. Your cat is really good, the female doctor said without hesitation as she tidied up. Thank you, doctor. Jiang Lin expressed his gratitude again. Don't keep thanking me, this is my job. By the way, my surname is Lin. How about we add a WeChat account? Your cat is really likable the more you read it. I see you are also a beginner, so if you have anything you don't understand, you can ask me directly. Dr. Lin smiled gently. Okay. Jiang Lin agreed and took out his phone to add WeChat. He is indeed a beginner. If he has any questions, it would be better to ask professional life directly than to search around the internet all day. Leave the hospital. After arriving home, Jiang Lin was somewhat surprised to find that Xiaobai's physique had grown a bit. By 3 o'clock, it should have been the result of receiving the vaccine. Dr. Lin also mentioned that Xiaobai is a bit thin and weak this time. The cat's vaccine needs to be administered twice more, but the next time it will be at least a month later. Fortunately, besides having a low physical condition, Xiaobai still looks quite healthy. Shortly after Jiang Lin arrived home, he asked Dr. Lin on WeChat, and the other person quickly gave him a lot of advice, even providing some recipes. According to Dr. Lin's suggestion, Jiang Lin placed another order to buy some sheep milk powder, nutritional cream, chicken breast, etc., but didn't buy much. He wanted to wait until all the white people ate it to see if there were any actual effects. Moreover, Jiang Lin originally planned to invest some talent points in his physical talent after identifying the 3 talents of elementary thoughts, elementary emotions, and elementary cognition. End of this chapter. Chapter 7. The Nature of Little White. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 7. The nature of Little White. For the next half-month, he usually spends half a day coding and writing books, as this is currently his only source of income. The rest of his time is devoted to training novices to read. Jiang Lin spent a day sorting out some commonly used words, about 200 to 300, which were relatively basic, as well as words or vocabulary that he felt there was not a clear distinction between pets and humans. For example, you, me, people, eating, sleeping, drinking water, and so on, because they are all used in daily life, it is not difficult to demonstrate. After learning the first human script, Xiaobai seemed to have an epiphany. For this easy demonstration, his learning speed was much faster than when he first started learning the character, cat. In the first week, Xiaobai mastered over 20 Chinese characters, averaging 2 to 3 per day. Although it is not comparable to the level of human toddlers, considering the differences in race, Jiang Lin is already quite satisfied, and Xiaobai's intelligence has also increased to 15 points. Training is usually done in the morning, after all, the plan of the day depends on the morning. Although Jiang Lin is not sure if this statement applies to cats. In the afternoon, Jiang Lin sat in front of the computer carefully typing, earning living expenses for himself and the novice. Xiao Bai let it play on its own inside the house, but the little one will still run over directly. It no longer likes to use a suitcase as a springboard to jump onto the table, but prefers to jump directly onto Jiang Lin's legs, with its small head protruding from between Jiang Lin's arms to watch him code. However, with Xiao Bai's small amount of Chinese character reserves and Jiang Lin's fast coding speed, it is estimated that Xiao Bai is just watching the excitement. So at most half an hour later, Xiao Bai couldn't help but squint his eyes, yawn with his mouth wide open, and involuntarily lie on Jiang Lin's lap, with his two small paws together as a pillow, his small head leaning against it, his ears slightly moving, and the crackling sound of keyboard tapping resembling a Buddha-like lullaby, and he could quickly fall asleep. Occasionally, Jiang Lin lowered his head and glanced at the little one sleeping soundly. His relaxed sleeping appearance seemed to have a strong infectious power, making even the tired Jiang Lin feel much happier. Sometimes until he finished writing all the chapters for today, even before Xiao Bai woke up, Jiang Lin continued to sit quietly, carefully touching his head and then his paws. However, usually without the hypnosis of keyboard tapping, Xiao Bai will soon wake up, yawn long, open his ignorant little eyes, and lazily call out to Jiang Lin twice. Do you want to eat food? Meow v equals caret omega caret smiley face. The little white happily nodded his head. The Chinese characters learned in the first week are commonly used in daily life. After mastering them preliminarily, Jiang Lin is now able to engage in this simplest question and answer style communication with Xiao Bai. For Jiang Lin, who has little experience in keeping pets, it actually provides great convenience, and there is no need to guess the pet's thoughts. Just ask for any uncertainties directly. The food for Xiao Bai is now quite abundant, with cat food paired with various nutritional creams. Occasionally, Jiang Lin would also boil some chicken breast with clean water. He has never been so attentive to his own dinner before. Jiang Lin is now increasingly fond of this cute little creature. He thinks that having such a little thing sleeping on his lap every day while typing will improve his typing efficiency, and sometimes even make him feel inexplicable happiness and satisfaction. However, this shallow happiness gradually evolved into the annoyance of happiness in the second week. In the days when I first found Xiao Bai, he was still unfamiliar and afraid of everything at home. At night, he basically slept in his shoebox. Afterwards, Jiang Lin specifically bought a semi-enclosed cat bed, but unfortunately, Xiao Bai seemed to have a fondness for shoe boxes. Even if he voluntarily put it in, it would still run out on its own. Of course, this is not a big deal. Anyway, Jiang Lin doesn't care about things that cost a few tens of yuan. But by this week, the situation has changed. This already small rental house, as Xiao Bai slowly explored, had already figured out every corner, and it no longer had fear and unfamiliarity. The nature of nocturnal animals has finally been liberated. 3 or 4 months old kittens are already at their peak of curiosity, and with their innate talent for beginner thinking, their enthusiasm and energy for learning seem to become particularly strong. In the quiet of the night, Jiang Lin was sleeping soundly. For him, the day had already ended. For Xiao Bai, a brand new and beautiful day has finally begun. Cats are born with the ability to see things clearly at night, and in the eyes of Little White, the pitch-black room is like a newly opened amusement park. When the lights inside the house go out, the naive Little White couldn't contain the excitement that came out of his body involuntarily. He jumped out of his shoe box and ran happily towards his exclusive amusement park. The first time Jiang Lin was awakened was in the middle of the night, just as he rubbed his sleepy eyes and turned on the light. All his drowsiness was instantly scared away. Good guy, half a year ago he spent a few hundred yuan to buy a mechanical keyboard specifically for typing, which had already fallen to the ground. On the table, the playful Little White had not yet realized it and meowed a few times. Jiang Lin glared fiercely at Xiao Bai, not even considering putting on his slippers. He lifted the bed and rushed up, picking up the mechanical keyboard. Looking left and right, he couldn't see anything except for a little dust on the surface. Jiang Lin still felt uneasy and quickly turned on the computer, trying every button. Only then did he feel at ease. Finally, there was no danger, and he secretly felt grateful that he had not been tempted by cheap prices and had bought a more expensive but relatively sturdy style. Taking a breath of relief, Jiang Lin looked up at the table again, ready to find the culprit and settle the accounts. Where did the perpetrator go? He looked left and right, but there was no trace. Did he sneak away in fear of guilt while he was checking the keyboard? In a moment of confusion, I suddenly heard a rustling sound behind me. Looking back, it was indeed Xiao Bai. The little guy was holding a pair of slippers in his mouth, stumbling and dragging, finally dragging them to the front of him. He opened his mouth and placed the slippers at Jiang Lin's feet, looking up at Jiang Lin and shouting. Meow meow meow, Omega, it's like saying to Jiang Lin. Master, the ground is cold, put on your shoes quickly. Just as Jiang Lin rushed out of bed, he didn't even bother putting on his slippers. He had been sitting here barefoot checking the keyboard, and only then did he feel the coldness on his feet. The little one seemed unaware that he had caused trouble and looked very grateful. Jiang Lin couldn't help but laugh and cry, and his anger had already dissipated by the moment he saw the slippers. An inexplicable warmth surged in his heart. Since being laid off and unemployed at home, although Jiang Lin can basically support himself by coding and writing, over time, he always feels a bit lonely. And now, Jiang Lin suddenly realized that since this little cutie moved in, this sense of loneliness seemed to be gradually weakening. Looking at the cold mechanical keyboard again, Jiang Lin no longer intends to hold Xiao Bai accountable. End of this chapter. Chapter 8. Desktop Cleanup Master. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 8, Desktop Cleanup Master. The next day, Jiang Lin made some adjustments to the text he was going to learn today, making Xiao Bai realize the importance of the keyboard to Jiang Lin. This is related to whether Jiang Lin can continue to earn money to support his family, but Xiao Bai currently has no concept of the value of money. Although he has learned how to write, he still seems a bit confused. So Jiang Lin directly took the box of canned cats he received not long ago, placed it next to the keyboard, and then took out a piece of paper to place between the keyboard and the canned cats, with a large, equal sign written on the paper. Keyboard, sad face can of cats, meow meow, the little white wagged its tail and nodded frequently, indicating that it understood. Jiang Lin's heart was calm. Continue teaching literacy in the morning and coding to support the family in the afternoon. Shortly after noon, Xiao Bai, who had just finished his canned food, jumped onto Jiang Lin's lap again with ease, yawned, and lazily slept with his paws resting on his head. For Xiao Bai, the day is over. Jiang Lin hesitated a bit, but ultimately lost to Xiao Bai's cuteness without disturbing him. A spring afternoon. The gentle breeze brushed against the curtains, disrupting the spring light into fine pieces of glass and pouring it in. Occasionally, Jiang Lin would gently move his legs towards the window, allowing Xiao Bai's body to bask in the afternoon sunshine for a while. Jiang Lin even began to slowly enjoy the time of typing in the afternoon. Until that evening. Before going to bed, Jiang Lin may not be at ease and equated the keyboard with Xiao Bai's favorite cat Ken recently. With Xiao Bai's current level of intelligence, he should not touch his mechanical keyboard again. After more than 4 hours of sleeping in Jiang Lin, this beautiful dream was shattered by the crisp sound of broken glass. When Jiang Lin woke up and turned on the lights, he saw that the water cup he had placed on the table had already been smashed to pieces. The culprit wagged his small tail and didn't even rush to escape from the crime scene. He stood on the table, barking joyfully at Jiang Lin's meow, who suddenly woke up. A water glass is not worth much. Today, Jiang Lin's mentality was relatively stable. He didn't rush or take the time to put on his slippers. He cleaned up the glass debris first, sat down on the chair, drew a piece of paper, and wiped off the remaining water stains on Xiaobai's paws. With a hint of reproach, he said, "Look at you, didn't you agree to me? Why did you cause trouble again?" Meow, meow, meow. Xiaobai blinked his innocent eyes, looked at Jiang Lin, and then at the intact mechanical keyboard. It was strange why the owner suddenly blamed him. The meaning is, "Look, a keyboard is like a can of cats, I didn't touch the keyboard." Jiang Lin understood Xiaobai's expression and sighed silently for a moment. Well, Xiaobai's logic is indeed not a problem, it's only because he didn't explain things clearly during the day. Cats like to act at night, and Jiang Lin knows that he used to naively think that there was no need to forcefully change the little one's nature. But every night, Jiang Lin couldn't sleep well, resulting in a lack of energy the next day. Not only did he not have much energy to continue teaching the novice how to read, but he also couldn't fully concentrate on writing novels in the afternoon. Jiang Lin continues to try to communicate by teaching it how to read. And on the third night, his socket board was brutally murdered. On the fourth night, the desk lamp died with a loud bang. Jiang Lin even figured out the pattern. Xiaobai seemed to be staring at his desk and had a strong curiosity about the things on it. This puzzled Jiang Lin a lot. He couldn't help but open the pet panel several times and carefully observed Xiaobai's talent. He didn't have the talent of desktop cleanup master, so could he still hide his talent? Okay, Jiang Lin has to admit that his previous ideas were a bit naive. So on the weekend, he took the initiative to contact Dr. Lin on WeChat, wanting to ask for their opinions first. However, he hasn't contacted him since the last time he added WeChat, so maybe he deleted himself long ago. Jiang Lin. Smiling face. JPG, hello, Dr. Lin. I went to your hospital last time to get vaccinated for my kitten. Do you remember me? After politely asking the question, there was no red exclamation mark as imagined, it seems that the friend has not been deleted yet. I didn't wait too long, the other party replied quickly. Dr. Lin. Of course I remember. Are you that gentle and lovely little handsome guy? The other party withdrew a message, Dr. Lin. Of course I remember. Are you the person who brought a gentle and cute little white cat to get vaccinated? Jiang Lin. It's me. Is Dr. Lin busy at the moment? I have some questions and would like to ask if I can disturb your work. Dr. Lin made a direct voice call. After connecting, Dr. Lin enthusiastically complained, "It's not good to come directly to me if you have any problems." You're welcome. Didn't I tell you before? I like your cat. Jiang Lin coughed twice and quickly recounted the troubles of the past few days. Dr. Lin suddenly laughed happily for a while and said, "You're really cute, cough cough cough. I mean, your cat is really cute. Haven't you heard a sentence? People don't cook cats during the day, cats cook people at night." Yes, I have a profound understanding now, so are there any good solutions? It's simple. If your house is very big, just close the bedroom door at night and let your cat play in other rooms on its own. Cough, is there any other way? Then work hard to train and change its daily routine. There are many ways to do this, such as eating before bedtime, not letting it sleep during the day, and interacting more to consume its energy. Dr. Lin carefully explained many ways to change the cat's routine. Jiang Lin took it seriously and expressed his gratitude again. The other party was more enthusiastic than expected, and Jiang Lin also expressed that he would visit their house frequently in the future. Dr. Lin didn't seem to have the intention, so he tentatively asked, "If you have time, we can actually schedule a meeting somewhere. It would be more convenient for you to have a face-to-face conversation if you have any questions." "Oh, I'm not available lately, I'm sorry." Okay, then, goodbye. Well, goodbye. Jiang Lin has been really busy lately. Starting from next week, he needs to start changing Xiao Bai's schedule. Actually, aside from this annoyance, Xiao Bai's learning achievements this week are still quite good. Over the course of a week, Xiao Bai's literacy speed continued to improve compared to last week, with a total of over 40 Chinese characters mastered and his intelligence improved to 16 points. Jiang Lin also roughly figured out some patterns. The higher the spiritual intelligence, the higher the efficiency of learning words. The more words one learns, the more spiritual growth they will have. The two complement each other. Of course, there should be an upper limit to the growth of intelligence through learning words, but it is still far from this upper limit. The improvement of favorability is much simpler. As we spend more time together, it will automatically and continuously improve. Now, our favorability has reached 29 points. It is still unknown what new things a higher level of favorability can unlock after meeting the conditions for opening the talent tree. End of this chapter. Chapter 9. Starting to adjust schedule. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 9. Starting to adjust schedule. A new week. Jiang Lin began to adjust his schedule. Originally, he taught Xiao Bai how to read in the morning, but now he has changed to coding it himself in the morning. However, Xiao Bai will not let it sit idle. Dr. Lin mentioned to him that during the day, it is important to interact with the kitten as much as possible, play with them more, buy toys, and consume their energy. Jiang Lin bought some cat toys while buying cat food a few weeks ago, such as a cat teaser stick. In the first 1 or 2 days, Xiao Bai still had a lot of fun playing. Later on, when the talent for beginner thinking came out, he went to tease the cat with these things, and Xiao Bai gradually became just lacking in interest. Jiang Lin's understanding is that the little one may feel that these toys are too childish now. What is Xiao Bai more interested in and buying more high-end toys? Jiang Lin pondered for a moment and glanced at the little guy hovering near the desk, as if he was constantly looking for an opportunity to jump onto the desk. Suddenly, a flash of inspiration flashed in his mind, as if he had understood. In the past week, he has gradually realized that Xiao Bai is more inclined to jump onto the desk or wander around nearby. It can't really have the hidden talent of a desktop cleaning master, it should be something on the desk that attracts it, more attractive than toys like cat teasers. Keyboard. Table lamp. A water cup. There aren't really many things on the table, and the answer is almost easy to guess. Xiao Bai is interested in computers, the novel documents that Jiang Lin opens every day, and more directly, the lines of text in the documents. Jiang Lin picked up Xiao Bai and looked at this cute little cutie, feeling very unbelievable. He originally thought that teaching Xiao Bai how to read was just a momentary interest of his own, and sometimes even wondered if it would be too difficult for cats, tiring Xiao Bai. After all, he was only a 4-month-old kitten. Unexpectedly, Xiao Bai actually has a stronger interest in writing himself. Thinking this way, the mischievous behavior of Xiao Bai every night can also be explained. It always likes to jump to the desk, maybe just want to open the computer and see the document that is all text. At its current level, it obviously doesn't have the ability to open the computer on its own and tinker around, inevitably touching other things on the table. Perhaps it is the effect of the innate talent of beginner thinking that enriches the thinking logic of novices. The more they think, the more urgent their cognitive desire for the world will be. The source of all of this is to first be literate. Since that's the case, then it's easy to handle. Jiang Lin has downloaded many children's literacy tutorial videos on his phone, each of which is not long for a few minutes, but there are hundreds of videos. He lifted Xiao Bai onto the bed, opened his phone, and placed the video in front of him. The video content is actually similar to Jiang Lin's character recognition teaching. First, list a word, then read the pronunciation, and add the corresponding picture or short video animation to further explain. The initial video will be relatively simple, but later it will become more complex. Compared to manual teaching, this is indeed more convenient, but after all, the teaching object is a cat, and there are many cognitive biases with humans, and Jiang Lin is not sure if it will be useful. However, it's okay. Jiang Lin's main purpose is to attract the attention of novices, and as for literacy efficiency, it can be considered a byproduct. Xiaobai has no interest in mobile phones, and originally wanted to turn around and leave directly. After the sound in the video came, it showed a slight curiosity and turned around. It took small steps to approach the phone and poked its head. In the video, what is being taught is fire. After listening for more than 10 seconds, Xiaobai changed from a four-legged position to a squatting position and raised his ears. This is the action he is attentively listening to. Jiang Lin breathed a sigh of relief. In fact, he was not sure if Xiaobai could fully understand the video content, but these 2 weeks of Jiang Lin's training at least made Xiaobai understand that this is a literacy tutorial. Seeing the little one taking it seriously, Jiang Lin chuckled lightly. As he had guessed, Xiaobai had a natural interest in learning writing. In order to make it clear to the novice, Jiang Lin set the playback speed to 0.5 times and then put 10 videos together, repeatedly looping through the playback. Afterwards, Jiang Lin went back to continue coding. After a period of time, he stood up to give Xiaobai a new wave of videos, and then continued to play them in a loop. During this period, Xiaobai has always been very obedient, except for occasionally going to the litter box to use the restroom. He is almost always watching the video carefully. The previous manual teaching session has now been postponed to the afternoon. Jiang Lin is no longer just randomly selecting text, but will first reorganize the text from the teaching video that Xiaobai watched in the morning, and then manually list it again to determine whether Xiaobai has truly learned. As expected, although nearly half of the simpler text has been directly mastered through video, there is still another half of the text that Xiaobai seems to understand but has not fully understood. And these are the tasks of Jiang Lin's afternoon teaching. This combination of video and manual mode seems to be more efficient than the previous 2 weeks. Of course, if it weren't for the constantly accumulating and increasing spiritual intelligence before, Xiaobai's progress speed wouldn't have been so fast. In the afternoon, it was originally the time for Xiaobai to sleep, but now he suddenly changed his schedule. At first, he was not used to it. Especially in the afternoon, basking in the warm spring sunshine, even Jiang Lin couldn't help but feel a surge of drowsiness, yawning incessantly. On the contrary, it was Xiaobai who seemed quite excited and never had the intention of going to bed. Jiang Lin couldn't help but be surprised. He underestimated the little guy's desire to learn. This high-intensity learning lasted until evening, and when the sun was about to set, Jiang Lin finally stood up and put away things like early education cards and mobile phones. Meow meow meow. Oh. Chapter 10 Unlocking Achievements. Betting Together. You are listening at novelfull.audio. Chapter 10 Unlocking Achievements. Betting together. Jiang Lin was surprised and couldn't help but cry and laugh. He certainly had no reason to oppose and waved his hand. Upon receiving the signal, Xiaobai immediately jumped up lightly and onto the bed. Her little paw stepped on the soft bed, looked left and right, and finally found a place to sleep. She walked over to Jiang Lin's pillow and lay down. Turn off the lights and go to sleep. The early spring night was still a bit chilly, and Jiang Lin slightly lifted a corner of his blanket. Before he could speak, he felt a fluffy thing sneaking in from the darkness. Jiang Lin chuckled and felt the warmth emanating from Xiaobai's body. Gradually, his drowsiness surged and he quickly fell into a deep sleep. The night finally returned to tranquility, and for the first time in days, Jiang Lin slept so soundly. At dawn, what made Jiang Lin wake up leisurely was the mechanical prompt from the system. Achievements. Betting together. Pet novice is willing to share the same bed with you. This is the beginning of trust. Obtain additional talent. Point 1. Jiang Lin, who had just woken up, was a bit confused. Can this also achieve success? It sounds a bit strange to sleep in the same bed. Turning her head, the little cutie beside her hasn't woken up yet, leaving only a small head outside and her whole body still shrouded in bed. Jiang Lin was a bit curious as he lifted the blanket and found that Xiaobai was completely lying asleep, revealing his soft abdomen and limbs stretching freely, much like a person lying down to sleep. Jiang Lin understood why he suddenly achieved success. During this period, he has also gained a lot of experience in raising cats. The sleeping position of a cat shows that he trusts the people around him and is not on guard. Opening the pet panel, the favorability has reached 40, a significant increase compared to before. As for the additional new talent points, there was no hesitation this time. According to the previous plan, he also added the basic emotional talent. Primary emotions. Your pet will gain richer emotions and gradually develop a basic sense of value. After learning this talent, your pet's intelligence +6, in this way, Xiaobai's overall intelligence has reached 22 points. In the next few days, we will continue to follow yesterday's learning mode. In the morning, let Xiaobai watch video tutorials on his own, and in the afternoon, let Jiang Lin teach manually. Moreover, Jiang Lin found that the current literacy efficiency is much higher than the previous 2 weeks. Many times, it can be directly mastered through video teaching, and Jiang Lin can only provide supplementary or more detailed explanations at most. This week, Xiaobai has mastered nearly 200 Chinese characters, which is no less than the level of humans. His intelligence has further improved, reaching 24 points. Mastering a large number of commonly used words has gradually made Xiaobai have a stronger desire to communicate and more eager to communicate with Jiang Lin. As a Meow Star human, even with high intelligence at this stage, it is far from being able to directly speak human language. Simply nodding or shaking one's head, even when combined with various expressions from Xiaobai, is already difficult to satisfy what Xiaobai wants to express now. Many times, Xiaobai meowed beside him for a long time, and Jiang Lin's face was full of confusion as he guessed for a long time, but still couldn't figure out why. The last person with a cat can only stare big and small, speechless. So Jiang Lin came up with the most direct solution. He cut each piece of white paper into more than 300 pieces, and then neatly wrote down all the words or commonly used vocabulary that Xiaobai currently mastered on them one by one. If Xiaobai wants to say something, he can pick out relevant vocabulary and put it directly in front of Jiang Lin. Since the emergence of the elementary emotion, talent, the inner world of today's novice has become much richer than before, and he thinks much more than before. What Xiaobai misses the most is still the computer on the desk. Because it has not yet learned basic grammar, every time it uses vocabulary cards to express itself, it can only select some key words, but it can basically make Jiang Lin guess roughly. Computer, text. Jiang Lin read the card softly and pondered for a moment. Do you want to ask how the computer can be turned into text? You can type on the keyboard, type in documents, just like what I do every morning. Hurry up. Jiang Lin looked at this simple card and smiled. Yes, I do type very fast. Think and learn. Jiang Lin knows what Xiaobai wants to express. Typing directly on the keyboard is much faster than slowly searching through a pile of cards like this. And as more Chinese characters are mastered in the future, this method becomes even more inefficient. Learning computer typing is indeed a good way, but the first step is to learn pinyin. How to pronounce Meow Star people is a difficult problem, and Jiang Lin originally planned to master a certain vocabulary before trying pinyin teaching. It's not easy to express all of this thought, and the main novice may not fully understand. After thinking for a moment, Jiang Lin came up with a simple reason. I need to use the computer every day to make money, and it's impossible for you to use it all the time. So, it's better to learn typing in a while. Money is useful. The vocabulary that Xiaobai uses is very simple, which can save communication time. Yes, money is very important. In my room, except for you and me, everything else can be exchanged with money. Xiaobai widened his eyes slightly, seeming a bit excited. He immediately turned around and quickly found a few pieces of paper to express his strong desire. I make money. Jiang Lin laughed heartily and stroked the hair on Xiao Bai's body, saying, "Don't think about it, you can't make money now." This is killing the conversation, and Xiao Bai immediately fell silent. He slipped away and didn't want to talk to Jiang Lin for the time being. Life is still going on step by step. At the weekend, Jiang Lin unexpectedly received a system prompt again. Your pet Xiao Bai has grown for 4 months and has obtained talent point 1, unconsciously, Xiao Bai has been at home for a whole month. In addition to achieving success, as the cat grows naturally, it can also earn certain talent points. So, Jiang Lin casually pointed out that elementary cognition as well. Basic understanding. Enhance pet's basic understanding of all external information. After learning this talent, their intelligence plus 6, Xiao Bai's intelligence has also arrived at 30 o'clock. All 3 talents in the second row of the talent tree have been selected, and there are already many more talents to choose from in the third row of the spiritual line compared to before. In addition to further strengthening talents in thinking, logic, emotional cognition, and other aspects, some skill talents that can be actively used have also emerged. If you continue to click down on this talent line, you can learn the meditation skill. Continuing down from the talent line, you can learn the emotional perception skill. Continuing down the talent line, one can learn the observation skill. End of this chapter.